Chapter 10, number 2. The return of Caesar to his army must be rendered impossible, a project the execution of which was so much the easier, since the legions would not dare to leave their winter quarters in the absence of their general, and since the general himself could not join them without a sufficient escort. The Carnutes are the first to offer to take arms, as the necessity of acting secretly did not allow them to exchange hostages. They exact as security an oath of alliance. This oath is taken by all the ensigns in a meeting in which the moment for the rising is fixed. On the day appointed to the Carnutes, led by two resolute men, Cotuatus and Conetodonos, rushed to Genabum, Gien, plundered and slaughtered the Roman merchants, amongst others the knight C. Fusius Sita, charged by Caesar with the victualling department. These news reached the return of Caesar to his army. On the day appointed, the Carnutes, led by two resolute men, Cotuatus and Conetodomus, rushed to Genabum, Gien, plundered and slaughtered the Roman merchants, amongst others the knight C. Fusius Sita, charged by Caesar with the victualling department. These news reached every state in Gaul with an extreme celerity, according to the custom of the Gauls of communicating remarkable events by cries transmitted from neighbor to neighbor across the country. Thus what had happened at Genabum at sunrise was known by the Arverni before the end of the first watch towards 8 o'clock at night, at a distance of 160 miles. Vercingetorix, a young Avernan, who possessed great influence in his country and whose father, Celtinus, for a time chief of all Gaul, had been put to death by his countrymen for having aspired to the royalty, calls his clients together and excites their zeal. Expelled from Gergovia by those who were unwilling to tempt fortune with him, he raises the country, and with the help of a numerous band, retakes the town and causes himself to be proclaimed king. Soon he seduces the Senones, the Parisi, the Pictones, the Cadurci, the Torones, the Auliarchi, the Lemovies, of Armorica, the Andes, and the people who dwell on the shores of the ocean. The commandment is given to him by unanimous consent. He exacts hostages from those peoples, orders a prompt levy of soldiers, fixes the number of men in arms with each country is to furnish in a given time, and occupies himself especially with the raising of the cavalry. Active, daring, severe, and inflexible even to cruelty, he subjects to the most atrocious tortures of those who hesitate, and by these means expels from Gergovia by those who were active, daring, severe, and inflexible even to cruelty, he subjects to the most atrocious tortures those who hesitate, and by these means of terror soon forms an army. He sent a part of it to the Ruteni under the command of Caducus Lucterius, a man full of daring, and to draw the Bituriges into the insurrection, he invaded their territory. By acting thus, he threatened the province and protected his rear whilst he moved towards the north, where the Roman occupation was concentrated. On his approach, the Bituriges solicited the help of the Aedui, their allies. The last, by the advice of Caesar's lieutenants who had remained with the army, sent them a body of cavalry and infantry to support them against Vercingetorix. But when they reached the Law, which separated the territory of the two peoples, these auxiliary troops halted for some days and then returned without having dared to cross the river, pretending that they had been betrayed by the Bituriges. Immediately after active, daring, severe, which separated the territory of the two peoples, these auxiliary troops halted for some days and then returned without having dared to cross the river, pretending that they had been betrayed by the Bituriges. Immediately after the departure, the latter joined the Arverni. Caesar heard of these events in Italy, and reassured on the troubles in Rome which had been appeased by the firmness of Pompey, he took his departure from Transalpine Gaul. When he arrived on the other side of the Alps, perhaps on the banks of the Rhone, he was struck with the difficulties which lay in the way of his joining the army. If he sent for the legions into the Roman province, they would be compelled on their way to fight without him. If, on the other hand, he would go to them, he was obliged to pass through the populations to whom, notwithstanding their apparent tranquility, it would have been imprudent to trust his person. While Caesar found so great difficulties before him, Lucterius, who had been sent by Vercingetorix to the Ruteni, brings them over to the which separated the territory of the two peoples. These auxiliary. Okay, that was number 7. This is number 8. While Caesar found so great difficulties before him, Lucterius, who had been sent by Vercingetorix to the Ruteni, brings them over to the alliance with the Averni, advances towards the Nitobridges and the Gabali, from whom he receives hostages, and at the head of a numerous army threatens the province in the direction of Narbonne. These events made Caesar resolve to proceed to that town. His arrival put an end to the people's fears. He placed garrisons among the peoples who bordered on the territory of the enemy, the Ruteni on the left bank of the Tarn, Ruteni Provinciales, the Volgae, Arecomici, the Tolosates, and near Narbonne. At the same time, he ordered a part of the troops of the province and the reinforcements which he had brought from Italy to unite on the territory of the Helvae, which bordered upon that of the Arverni. Intimidated by these dispositions, Lucterius did not venture to engage himself in the midst of these garrisons and retired. The first danger, while Caesar found so great these events made Caesar resolve to proceed to that town. His arrival put an end to the people's fears. This first danger averted, it was important for Caesar to prevent Vercingetorix from raising other peoples who might perhaps be inclined to follow the example of the Paeterges. By invading the country of the Averni, Caesar might hope to draw the Gaulish chief into his own country, and thus remove him from those where the legions were wintering. He proceeded, therefore, to the country of the Helvae, where he joined the troops who had just concentrated there. The mountains of the Cevennes.
Okay, I'm gonna play that back one more time.
This is Julius Caesar. This is an audiobook recording. This is chapter 10, Year of Rome, 702, book 7 of the commentaries. Revolt of Gaul, capture of Velanodunum, Genabum, and Noviodunum, sieges of Avaricum and Galgovia, campaign of Labienus against the Parisi, siege of Alesia. The Roman arms had in 6 years subjugated one after another the principal states of Gaul. Belgium, Aquitaine, and the countries on the seacoast had been the theater of the most desperate struggles. The inhabitants of the Isle of Britain, like the Germans, had become prudent by the defeats they had suffered. Caesar had just taken a signal vengeance upon the revolted Eburones, and thought that he might without danger leave his army and proceed into Italy to hold the assemblies. This is Julius Caesar. During his abode in this part of his command, the murder of P. Clodius took place the 13th of the calends of February 30th of December 701, which caused a great agitation and gave rise to the Senatus Consultus, which ordered all the youths of Italy to take the military oath. Caesar took advantage of it to make levies also in the province. The rumors of what was taking place at Rome soon passed the Alps to revive the resentments and hopes of the Gauls. They believed that the domestic troubles would detain Caesar in Italy and would give rise to a favorable opportunity for a new insurrection. The principal chiefs meet in secluded spots, mutually excite each other by the recital of their grievances and by the remembrance of the death of Acco, promise great rewards to those who at the peril of their lives will commence the war, but decide that before all the return of Caesar to his army must be rendered impossible. During his abode in this part of his... Okay, so this is Julius Caesar